And they're off.
Bernard Goldberg has been a sports reporter for CBS and HBO for 28 years. He has won 11 Emmys for his journalism. In 2008, Goldberg filed a report on what happens to racehorses when they lose. He was interviewed by Heart of a Horse near his home in Florida.
I find one particular story memorable and not especially in a good way. This was a story about racehorses who don't run fast anymore and become a burden on their owners, a burden in the sense that when they're making money, the owners are obviously happy because it's a business. When they stop finishing in the money, they still have to eat, they still have to be housed, they cost money. And at some tracks in the United States, and some owners would sell the horses to someone called a meat man. He would arrive at the track in a truck, and they would load the horse in a truck, and the horse would then go to an auction. Somebody would buy the horse, but they wouldn't buy the horse to put in their backyard, you know, or anything like that. They'd buy the horse to ship, usually to Mexico, where the horse was slaughtered for food. Slaughtered in a way that when you watch it on tape, it's hard. It's hard to hear it described. First of all, they give a horse a shot to the head to try to put him out, but the horses aren't unconscious, and then they string them up by their legs and bleed them out, slit their throat and bleed them out. And then in a few days, these horses, these once proud racehorses, are on a plate someplace in Europe or Japan as dinner. Not an easy story to do. That was a story about a horse called Stormcat. I must have done that story over 5 years ago, and I hear more about that story than just about anyone I've ever done. Stormcat had a good racing line in him, and he was put out to stud in Kentucky on a farm that was one of the most beautiful places I'd ever seen. So Stormcat just hung out, except for twice a day. Hung out except for twice a day, ate grass, ran around the paddock. Twice a day they brought him into the shed, big barn, where he mated with mares that were on a waiting list to mate with him. And for twice a day, $500,000 a pop. $500,000 twice a day during mating season. And there was a woman in the office at this farm who actually made dates, if you can put it that way, for Stormcat. There would be owners of mares all over the place. We want to get in, want to bring the mare in for Stormcat. And they would pay $500,000 and then cross their fingers, of course, that they would, the mare would produce a great racehorse. If you compare that story, which put a smile on your face, and compare it to the other story where when they don't run fast enough anymore, they're slaughtered in a really bad way. Some tracks these days have adoption programs where you can go to the track and the horse is finished racing, he's not making any money for the owner anymore, and you could adopt out the horse. That's a great idea. The problem is, if you live in an apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, you're not going to be able to adopt a horse, you know? And there aren't enough people who are adopting horses where every horse that's ever run that isn't racing well anymore, that isn't winning any money for the owner anymore, can be adopted. And these other horses that are not adopted, that are sold to the, you know, to the meat man and sent to kill pens is what they call them, these terrible places where they're all thrown in together and then put on a truck to Mexico. These owners don't make a lot of money doing this. They make a couple of $100 selling the horse at auction, a couple of $100. But here's the part people don't want to hear. It's a business. They buy these horses to run to make money, and when they're not making money and they're costing them money, they figure I could pick up maybe $300, $400 by selling them off to somebody who's going to kill them for food. At one track in West Virginia, we interviewed a trainer who put the horse, helped put the horse on the truck that went off to the auction, which eventually went off to Mexico. And I'll tell you exactly what he said. Exactly what he said. He said, "Do you know what happened to that horse you put on there?" And he said, "I don't want to know." I said, "You don't want to know because you know what?" He said, "I don't want to know." So even the people who do it, I mean, look, this is going to sound crazy, but we feel differently about certain kinds of animals. You don't do certain things to a dog. You don't do certain things to a horse. If it were a pig, I know this sounds crazy. I'm acknowledging that up front. If it were a pig, if it were a snake, if it were this or that, nobody would care. For some reason, and this probably goes back a million years in our evolution, we have a thing for horses. They're noble animals. And one of the horses that was rescued, and I mean rescued by minutes before it would have been on its way to Mexico to be slaughtered, all the horses have tattooed numbers on the inside of their lip. This woman who adopted the horse called it into the registry and said, tell me the name of the horse and this and that. And the person said, go back and check the number again because you may have made a mistake. She checked the number again and she said, no, that's the number. This horse ran in the Kentucky Derby. Little Cliff was the horse's name. Ran in the Kentucky Derby. But when Little Cliff wasn't making money anymore, he was minutes, maybe not even minutes, maybe a minute away from being put on the truck when this woman came in and said, I'll pay for it. We also spoke to another woman who had a very low-level job at the track, and she knew what was happening, and it was killing her. She didn't have a lot of money. And she said, I went to the auction to try to buy a horse because I knew where it was going. It was going to slaughter. And I only had, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm close here. She said, I only had $160, but I needed $250 to save the horse, and I couldn't save the horse. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people, and I think I'm pretty tough when it comes to reporting. I had tears in my eyes, She didn't have enough money. She was going to take all the money that she had available to her, every penny she had available that week to save one horse, just one horse. Just save one. And she didn't have enough money to save the horse. Because what they do, by the way, is they buy the horse from the track, from the owner, let's say for $300. And then they auction it off for $400. And then if you want to come in and adopt the horse and save the horse and buy it before it goes off to Mexico, they're not charging you $400. These guys aren't in the charity business. They're going to tack on another $50 or $60. And, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, frankly, but if you're working in a bakery making cupcakes and you just want to save one horse, but you don't have that kind of money, you just like $80 short or a $75, whatever it is short, and you care about horses, that'll ruin your day. And I'm saying that sarcastically. That'll ruin a lot more than your day. It comes down to the fact that it's business. You know the line in The Godfather, in the novel, it's nothing personal, it's just business, and then they kill you? That's how it is. It's just business. If they could talk to the horse, again, I'm going to be silly for a second, they would say, you used to make money for me. You're no longer making money for me. Worse, you're costing me money. I still have to give you oats and give you a place to live. I can't do that. So nothing personal, it's business. Then they put them on a truck and they ship them down to Mexico and they slaughter them. They kill them and they bleed them out, and the horse is alive very often when they're being bled out, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. And the reason they send them to Mexico or Canada is because it's against the law to do that in this country. When I did the story, there was legislation in committee to make it a violation of law to even ship a horse out of the country for the purpose of being slaughtered. I don't know where that stands. But we did have pictures of people in Europe eating steak that was horse steak. I'm a journalist. I don't take sides. I don't take sides even when the sides are pretty well defined between, are you on the side of the horse being slaughtered or are you on the side of saving the horse? I don't take sides. I will say that Heart of the Horse is an organization that does rescue horses and does save horses. And if 10 horses are going to be shoved together on a truck for a ride from Pennsylvania all the way down to Mexico, maybe one of them can be saved. Maybe one, maybe two. But that takes money for somebody to buy the horse, because the owners of the horse and the people who buy the horses from the owners to go to slaughter aren't in the charity business. So if this is important to you, Heart of the Horse is an organization that could save a few horses.